2 weeks before Christmas, I had a premonition, and I had this daydream enter my head, and I seen it. Um, I was having a cigarette downstairs. I'll never forget it. And I had this overwhelming vision of me clutching my chest, falling on the floor at Christmas dinner. Uh, I wake up Christmas morning about 6:30 a.m. Um, I have a pretty good chest pain going on. It was like I left my body, uh, visited another dimension. I had no weight. There was no gravity. It was all gone. I felt so light.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Dale Croteau with us. He has had a near-death experience. I'm really excited to have him on and we can talk deeply about what happened to him. First of all, thank you so much, Dale, for jumping on the show with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's a real privilege to be with you and your listeners and be able to share what happened with me that fateful day. I'm very grateful for actually that it did happen. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but it was a real eye-opening experience that changed a lot of my life right away.
I love the way you actually just introed that because a lot of the times they live different lives, not different lives, but they have different concepts of life
Right.
before their NDE and then they come back and it's like you take culture shift and times it by a million. It's like, or culture
Yeah.
shock, I should say. And
Yeah.
they almost sometimes they don't know how to wrap their existence around it, right? So,
It was a
um,
That's a really good description of it. It's even hard to, I find, to put into human words so that people can understand because it was such a unhuman experience.
mm,
It really was. And it it's hard to put into words um, so that people understand, and because they're not seeing exactly what I saw, they're getting the description, right?
mhm. Let's let's start with the day it happened or what was happening up to it. So let's just lead up to why you even got to that place in the first place. I think you mentioned
Okay.
something before we started recording, but if you can go over that again,
Yeah.
just letting us know.
Um, the it goes back quite a ways before the actual event, but I believe it's connected. I tested positive for COVID in February of 2020, and I was fairly ill. I wasn't hospitalized. I got over it within 5 or 6 days, and it was pretty brutal. I'm not going to lie. It affected me in a great way. But once I was over it, when I got to work, I noticed something. And I work 6 months away at home. I don't go to work for 8 in the morning and come home in the afternoon. I went to work in May and I come back when there's enough snow on the ground we couldn't crush. So I was gone 6 months at a time. I lived there basically at work. And I noticed um, I wasn't performing like my normal self there. I'd been doing that job with them for about 5 years. And this last season, I knew that something was wrong with my gas tank and my energy, and weird things were happening with my body that I couldn't quite explain. Um, in my tower, it's all glass, so it's all windows. And it would get hot in there in the day. It would get over 40 degrees, and this is Celsius. I think it was 48 degrees Celsius at the one point. Um, and I wasn't sweating at all. And I thought, maybe I'm getting heat stroke. And I was getting blurry vision um, at times. And I also was getting dizzy and noticed I was short of breath really, really easy. Um, why that's a factor is I was at work and I didn't have a doctor there. I couldn't miss work because I was the only crusher operator. If I missed work, that meant the company was shutting down that day. Um, and I wanted to push through it because everybody wants to do that at work because it's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, if you develop long COVID or ME/CFS, pushing yourself through is the exact wrong thing to do. it will not do you any favors. It empties your gas tank and makes you worse over time. And that's exactly what happened. Um, and when I come out of there, it wasn't too long after I was at home. And 2 weeks before Christmas, I had a premonition. And I had this daydream enter my head, and I seen it. Um, I was having a cigarette downstairs. I'll never forget it. And I had this overwhelming vision of me clutching my chest, falling on the floor at Christmas dinner. Christmas dinner was with my family, my dad, my brother, my mom, everybody was there with the family, my kids. And I collapsed on the floor holding my chest. And I had this vision. And I'm like, why would that come up and pop into my head? Like, that's really strange, really negative. So I kind of brushed that thought aside, you know. And 2 weeks later, uh, I wake up Christmas morning about 6:30 a.m. Um, I have a pretty good chest pain going on. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty gnarly chest pain. And then I noticed I was getting nauseous and a cold, clammy sweat. Um, those things together, I was a firefighter for a number of years. I knew right then that I was probably needing 911.
Mm.
So I casually went out to the living room and I told my wife, I said, we got to call 911 or get me to the hospital, I think. The hospital is about a 5-minute drive from my house. And it was a lot quicker to get me into the car and straight to the hospital than call an ambulance and wait. So that's what we did. She got me in the car. I got to the hospital at like 6:30, quarter to 7 in the morning there. And the nurse met me at the door and asked me how she could help me. And I said, actually, I've got some chest pain and it's pretty serious. And um, I went to that hospital a number of times over issues with my heart. It wasn't the first time. They looked at me quite a few times in there over a number of years. Uh, but she skipped the step of hooking me up to the IV and taking my vitals. Um, every other time I've been to that hospital, they always took my vitals and everything before I went in the trauma room. That day, Maureen got me right into the trauma room. She didn't even hook up me to the blood pressure or any of vitals. She just got me right on the gurney. And
Wow.
it's a darn good thing she did. That probably saved my life. When I got on that gurney, she hooked up an ECG to me right away. And I think she's seen what's called the tombstone pattern on that ECG. And that is indicative of a heart attack. So I was suffering a heart attack and didn't know it at the time. So Maureen leaned into me and she handed me 3 aspirin and said, here, chew these fast. And so I did. And my chest pain was getting pretty severe at this point. It was really hurting. And about that moment, I seen Maureen stick her head out the trauma room and say she was going to need help. And when she came back, she grabbed a crash cart and put it beside the bed. I remember that happening and seeing that. And that's when I realized in my own head that, wow, things are pretty serious, probably. And that's when she leaned in to me real close and told me that I was having a heart attack and she needed me to relax and breathe as best I could. Well, that kind of shocked me. I was like,
Mm.
heart attack. And it really sunk in. Um, I was very scared at that point, kind of. Not kind of, I was very scared.
Yeah.
Um, and then all of a sudden, I felt this incredible blow to my chest, and it was intense. And I seen her arm move away. And of course, this was the first defibrillator shock that I received. I received a few to get me back. But when I received that shock, it almost drove me through the bed, I want to say. Like it was just that powerful. And then the lights went out. It was black, and everything turned different for me. Um, what was really weird is I could still hear the nurses talking, and I can tell you what they said while they were performing CPR and shocking me. I heard them talking, but um, which I found was really weird itself too. But not only that, when it went black, um, it was like I left my body, uh, visited another dimension. I had no weight. There was no gravity. It was all gone. I felt so light and so, I want to say, rejuvenated. Like I just woke up from the most incredible sleep I had. And I felt so good and peaceful. And it was really different. And then I noticed, I looked around, but I wasn't, this is hard to explain. I wasn't looking with my eyes, but I was looking around, and I could see all around me 360 degrees all at the same time.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, this is really strange because I've been blind in one eye since I was born. I never had vision in my left eye, proper vision. So right away, I picked up that all of a sudden I was seeing better than I've ever seen in my 50 years, um, not with my eyeballs, but I was seeing around me, and it was dark, and I wasn't afraid. And I'm like, why am I not afraid? Because that's really strange to be somewhere dark, somewhere you don't know. And just as quick as I thought that, um, it came into my mind. It just was instant. And it said, don't be afraid. And this information was coming to me like telepathically. It was just entering me. It wasn't through my eyes or my ears. It was just like a way of knowing, and it was coming to me in my head. And it was really dark. I was really light. I felt really good. I was like, wow, this is really extraordinary experience. Um, and then all of a sudden, as quick as that happened, um, I returned to my body with like a slam. I knew the moment I was back in my body because everything changed real quick. I sat up, and I had an oxygen mask on. The code team was all around me working on me. Um, and when I looked up, the nurse said, "You scared me."
Yeah,
And
I bet.
I tried to apologize, but I couldn't even speak. And I was kind of having like minor convulsions on the gurney, like I was shaking and kicked my legs. And I was like, wow. And I was just coming to at this time. And I realized that wherever I just was a lot better than where I am now, because the pain returned, the heaviness returned, and it was like being in a whole nother world all over again. The stress came back, the worry. I had none of that. It was all gone. And I was kind of miffed that they disrupted where I was because
Right.
it was so peaceful, and it's almost undescribable, like how I felt. And to go through that and then be back with the pain and the heaviness and the stress, I knew right away, like this is I'm back. And then they got me into the ambulance and got me into intensive care unit in Edmonton, where they placed a stent in my heart because I had suffered a widowmaker heart attack. Um, Not many people survive that situation. I was extremely fortunate. I was at the hospital when it happened. And I'm extremely fortunate that that nurse was on the ball that day, that she kind of went by that protocol and just got me on the gurney and noticed right away what was going on. I believe everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And I believe that all of that happened. Um, that's why I'm still here today. If she would have took that extra step of taking the time to take my vitals, it very well may have costed me my life. I believe that.
Wow.
Um, so I was out, I believe, about 8 or 9 minutes. I was shocked 3 times. Um, but I knew that that experience was something that was, it removed all my fears. It taught me not to be so stressed over things that don't matter anymore. And when I say that, there was things that didn't matter as much to me at that instant that they used to, such as money, income, bills, my employment. I was out of work at the time. I was finished for the season, and I was, there's all these things that we stress about, you know, and many are titles, work titles, how far you go, you want to impress everybody, how much things you own, um, your hobbies that you do, things you spend time doing. Um, Hopefully they're important and meaningful, because if you spend all your time doing things that are not, it creates bad stuff. Stress is bad. And I was going through a lot of that stress. And I think that's kind of what my lesson was here, that I needed to stop worrying about everything so much. And this
Hmm.
really taught me that at the end of the day, we're not leaving here with anything except memories.
Hmm.
The money stays in the bank, it goes to the kids, which is important. But uh, as far as experiencing life, I needed to experience life in a more positive way, even though I was pretty sick, or I am pretty sick. I still am. But it gave me a different outlook on life, and that I could still appreciate the small things, because they're pretty much now the big things. There's things I can't do. I can't sit outside in the sun. It'll knock me out and put me in bed for days. I'll have what's called a crash. People with MECFS often go into crashes because of too much heat, too much light, too much sound. There's sensitivity overload, and it can actually cause a crash that can keep people in bed for weeks.
Wow.
There's people that are months. Some people are too bed and can't get out of bed. That's how severe this disease can be. Um,
Hmm.
but fortunately, I'm not on the severe end yet. I am severe, but not severe. Um, so there's a lot of learning in this whole situation that happened right back from when I originally got sick. I mean, this was a period of over 2 years that all this happened and things came together, but they came together fast on the 25th of December in 22. I'll tell you, um, it was instant. And when I was in intensive care recovering, that's when everything started coming back. And I was like, it's it was all fitting. Um, and my intuition, it was just sharp now. Um, since that day, I've noticed a big difference in my intuition. And I listen to it a lot more than I ever used to. And I believe that day is what changed that. And there's another thing that happened with that. There was a medium that I talked to after one of my podcasts, and I asked her, um, why did I get a warning? Because this was a clear premonition. I was like, was that a warning from somebody? Or can you tell anything from that, what happened? And it was kind of ironic because she said, yeah. And she said it was a older male that would have been in his late 50s or early 60s. And that didn't throw alarm bells at me in any way at that moment. Um, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she said, yeah. And she said, what do frogs mean to you? And I took a deep breath and I almost fell out of my chair.
Hmm.
Um, my Uncle John used to ribbit at me like a frog,
Oh, wow.
and my brother. He bought my mom one of them frog cloth holder things. Frogs were Uncle John's thing. Um, and when she said that, um, it really struck me. Wow, there is something to this, and it's
Mhm.
more than just coincidence. Um, because she could have said that to almost anybody else in the world, I think, and it wouldn't have meant anything really to them, I don't think, in that situation. Um, the fact that she said that to me and brought up the frog um, really confirmed to me that this is beyond coincidental. And
Mhm.
that was part of my intuition saying, geez, maybe she's right. And that's exactly what it was a warning from the other side.
Right.
Um, because I know I clearly had that premonition. And and when I was in the hospital going through this experience, I wasn't on drugs that cause hallucinations. I was on your standard heart attack procedure. They gave me adrenaline, I believe, and a clot buster drug. So, in fact, things were clearer in that time than they've ever been in my life. I remember hearing the nurses saying that I had stopped responding when they asked me what I had for dinner. I remember hearing that. And I remember hearing Maureen shouting at the other nurse. She said, "Get this blood to the lab. Stat, stat." She said it twice.
Mm.
And when she did that, that's when it sunk in that things are really serious. And I heard those conversations while I was not coherent. I mean, things went black. And I
Right.
heard those voices after things went black, which was
Mm.
kind of ironic. And it just proved to me the whole situation once I hashed everything out and sorted it all out, because there was a bit of trauma, a bit of shock, um, and everything that I was going through at the time. But boy, I'll tell you, I knew right away that there's more to life and death than what we understand. And we
Mm.
don't have the right understanding of it. I believe that death is a transition. It isn't. It's a death of the human body, but the soul and the consciousness survive, and they actually expand because when you take your human limits, what happened to me, it was like they were removed when I was free from my body, and I didn't have these filters anymore of my eyes or my ears. Um, Everything was just coming, and that without those filters, it actually expands. So your consciousness, I was picking up on things without those human senses, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah.
While I was in this void, in this blackness, that's when things were coming. Now, I didn't get to see the bright light, and I didn't get to meet the creator, or I didn't see any friends or family in this. But maybe I just wasn't quite there long enough, you know. But I was
Right.
certainly in that void where I was feeling different and I was waiting for the next step.
Sure.
Um, but that next step never came because I got shocked back. Um, so I never got to see any more beyond what I did. But I was very grateful that I got a glimpse of what I did, because it it removed all my fears of death and dying, and it changed how I live and deal with stress instantly.
Mm.
And I even quit smoking. And I mean, I smoked hard for like 35 years, I think. And I tried to quit 6 or 7 times and I could never quit. But I'll tell
Wow.
you what, after the day of that heart attack, um, I put them down and I've not touched them since. It's been 2 years today. I mean, I'm almost at the 2 year anniversary of the event here on Christmas Day, right? So it's been
Yeah.
2 years, and it's been a really nice 2 years because I've been enjoying things that I used to take for granted.
Wow. Okay. I want to just jump in and say, first of all, thank you so much for sharing everything. I know it's and with your event, it's just 2 years ago. And I talked to some people who've had their NDE 50 years before they talk to anybody. So the fact that you're
Right,
opening up about it so quickly and telling people your story, it's remarkable because it's somewhat fresh. And
right.
it is interesting that we're so close to Christmas. Maybe this will be a Christmas special that'll come out. Maybe I'll be able to jump things up a bit and get this out before Christmas or around that time. I um
Sure.
I had a few questions around some things because you one of the things that you said was after you were go on the other side. So once you had gone to that blackness, that darkness, that your vision got better, that you've always been partially blind in one of your eyes, and that you were able to see 360 degrees. You mentioned that you've seen things in 360, yet
Right.
it was blackness. So I'm trying to
Right.
understand. I mean, if I'm looking in blackness, I'm not seeing anything. So I'm trying to understand what you mean
Right.
by that you could see in 360, but it was darkness. Is there any way to
Yeah.
expand further on that, or is that difficult?
It's really tough to describe. But it was the feeling like if my eyes were closed and it was just kind of dark and I was looking around and I could know what was around me. There was nothing. And I knew that there was nothing around me and I was comfortable. It was really strange. And that's, like I said, I'm blind in one eye. So I never had vision of seeing all around me, but I knew that at the same time I was seeing all around me. I could
Mhm.
sense what was above me. I could sense what was below me. I could sense what was around me. But it wasn't with my eyes. It was with a way of knowing or the third eye. It was, you
Okay.
knew that information was there, but it wasn't coming through, your standard human eyeballs for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that comes up a lot is when people say, because again, as I said, some people have these unbelievable experiences. Some people, I mean, this is unbelievable too, but when we're looking at it from a humanistic standpoint, if
Right.
I say I'm in a black room, that doesn't sound very exciting as to somebody on this extravagant moment. But what I was going to say is it probably was to you because I guess I wanted to ask, did you know in that instant that you can survive beyond your physical? Did you know that you were somewhere different? Like, did it feel
Yeah.
like you were still existing in another
Yes.
realm or whatnot? And
Absolutely.
okay, yeah,
Um, Nothing, my conscious, nothing changed. It was almost just like a direct transition. And I didn't even realize that my body had passed away at the moment. I mean, that's how quick. Um, I didn't realize what happened. I just knew things were really different, and my conscience was still clear and functioning.
hmm,
Like I was still having thoughts in my brain, but um, it was really strange because I really shouldn't have been having any thoughts at that time. But I mean, I could remember them so clearly. That's the thing too, is it's almost indescribable. The only thing I can say really is that um, everybody is going to experience it one time, one day.
right,
Everybody is going to find out, and that's why I don't get too upset if people don't believe me. That's fine. That's their prerogative. Um, if somebody believes me or not, or anybody that has an NDE experience, it doesn't change the fact what happened in our experience.
right,
So it really doesn't matter. So I'm not out to influence anybody. I'm not out to try and be famous or anything like that. In fact, I'm quite the opposite. I kind of like the laid back country out of the limelight kind
right,
of lifestyle.
yeah,
I'm not one for public speaking. I'm not one for sharing my life stories with people I don't know.
mhm,
My circle's really small. Um, but this event was worth sharing with everybody. I'd share it with the world. I
mhm,
believe that's why I came back because I'm struck with this disease. I can't work. My life has changed in so many ways.
mhm,
The only thing I can really do is try and support and bring a fight or a cause to this disease I have and to my experience that I went through. I can share those with people and I can try and make a difference now in the MECFS world. And it's really needed because it is so unknown and under researched that we have to fight to get results. It's a really misunderstood disease. Sometimes they're treating people with physical therapy, and it's a wrong thing to do. They're finding that out now, but many people, if we exert ourselves, we go through a thing called post exertional malaise. It's a really violent price to pay for doing something small. I could make a sandwich, stand up, make a sandwich, and all of a sudden I'm in bed for 3 days because I exerted too much energy.
wow.
That's life with it. MECFS. So all these things that happen to me, people say they happen for a reason. Everything happens for a reason, but I don't know if I agree with that statement because MECFS is something that should never happen to anybody. In my mind,
Yeah.
it's brutal. But I try to look at the bright side of what I still can do, and things are going to be different. So I maybe I'm going to sit down and try and write a book about my experience because now I have the time and I have
Yeah.
nothing else to do, and I want to share the information because it helps people. I know there are people I've spoken to about my experience that have lost loved ones, and they were like, "Wow." Um, they asked me a few more questions about it, and all of a sudden I noticed that they seemed a little more comfortable about the situation with someone that they had lost. And I knew then that this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do is to help people. I've always tried to help people. I was a firefighter, volunteer. Helping people was something I'd love to do. And this is the only way I can do it now is by sharing my story and becoming a part of the community that I belong in, where I'm stricken with this disease to deal with. But sometimes we get some cards dealt to us, but it's not. It's how we play them, right?
Hmm.
And I believe that this has changed me all in a very positive way. So I just got to kind of continue that road, and every day is a gift, and
Well,
I appreciate that now.
I was gonna say I can attest 100% to your message being helpful in that, and you may not know a lot about my backstory, but I never had an NDE, but I'm a very spiritual person, but I had severe, almost crippling anxiety in my teenage years into my early 20s over the fear of death.
Right,
And I don't know where it came from. It just, I've always felt, um, I don't want to say I've always felt different, but I always grew up a little bit confused on how people treat each other. Almost like, I almost always felt like, wow, what am I doing here? I don't think I was supposed to be here again. That kind of thing. And I don't know what that feeling is.
right,
I don't quite understand it. I've brought it up a few times. But I think in feeling that way, because I was always thinking so deeply in comparison to my buddies who were just worried about when the hockey game was on or where they could get beer or cigarettes, I
right,
I was always trying to have these deep conversations and none of them understood me. They just so where did I turn to? I turned to near-death experiences. I started at that time I started reading books on people who died and come back.
right.
And then YouTube wasn't, I don't even know if YouTube was out yet, but it was very difficult to find any information on it. And
Yeah,
then I think YouTube was out, but it was not a lot of stories out there. And then as I learned more and more and more, my fear of what comes next dissipated, as did my anxiety. And it got rid of that hypochondriac in me around. I mean, I don't want to go anywhere. I don't think any of us do. Although I
right.
have talked to some NDEers who now say it's sometimes difficult to be here after what they've seen and felt. And I understand that.
Absolutely.
But they're also grateful for this life because we came here for some specific reason. And I mean, you look around the world right now, there's so much energy and so much going on. It's going to become some
Yeah,
interesting times in the next couple of years. So
absolutely.
I think we did this for a purpose and a reason. And so I just wanted to say that because I'm sorry that you're dealing with what you came back to deal with, but you're right in that um, I at one point was that one person that needed someone to say something, right? So someone's story, I don't know which one out of the thousands I was interested in, or it changed my mindset. Okay, this has got to be something. And then I went on my own spiritual journey. So your story could
Right,
entice someone to have their own spiritual journey. And that is important. So I just wanted to give you that feedback.
right. I appreciate it. No, I think it's important because, like I say, it's something that most people are taught that it's the end, but really, it's the end of the physical body, but it's not the end of your solar consciousness or energy. It just keeps going, and it just
Mhm.
goes somewhere else. That's exactly what that was, and however short. or it didn't. It's almost like time wasn't there. It was just a weird, such a great feeling. Like it really was. And I couldn't believe it when I came back. The difference between where I just was and that so relaxed state with no pain at all and no heavy body. Like I I looked when I was looking, I knew I didn't have a body because I couldn't see my body when I was looking
Right.
around. When I seen that 360 degrees, I wasn't seeing any body parts,
Right.
right? So I knew that yeah, I was out of my body. Things were different. And when I went back in it, it was like a rocket hit me. Like a train. The
Hmm.
the everything returned in an instant, and it was incredibly painful and stressful again. And
Yeah.
I just knew I'd left that area where I was at. And it's important for people to understand that maybe we don't understand everything about death. And maybe we're taught the wrong things. Because if everybody knew, and like I said, I don't want to go back today because I'm here for a reason too. But it was such a peaceful, calm where I was. And if you take today's world with what's going on around the earth right now, you can almost look around anywhere around the earth. Um, with everything going on, it was certainly seeming to be a much better place than what Earth is.
Mm.
Um, but I'm still here to learn. I'm not done my mission,
Right.
right?
Right.
So while it was pretty neat and to visit and get a glimpse of it. And now I know that one day, no matter how much pain I'm in, no matter how bad this disease treats me, that one day it's all going to be okay.
Mm.
And I'm going to return to that place where there's no pain, there's no stress, and I'm not going to feel the pains that I'm feeling today. So
Yeah.
everything is temporary, right?
Yeah.
Everything is temporary. And
And
that's what this proved to me. And that there is something to go to after. And I'm just very grateful for that experience because I needed it. I would have kept stressing out to the point I probably had another heart attack, you know,
right.
but only
Right.
15% of people that have a widowmaker survive outside the hospital.
Wow.
Only 20 something percent, 25% maybe survive if it happens in a hospital setting. So I know how fortunate I am. A lot of people that do survive that come out with some brain damage or some pretty heavy damage from a heart attack like that that can't be repaired. But I was so fortunate that I got to come back and I didn't have any major brain problems or issues because that was a very serious situation I was in.
Yeah.
Um, it happened fast, and if it wouldn't have been for intuition and listening to my inner self, I don't think I'd be here today sharing this story with you. Um, I knew when I was in that ambulance, and I was thinking back to the day I had the premonition, and I was like, "Here it is, Christmas Day, and I'm in an ambulance with a heart attack after that premonition." I knew it was all connected. I
Yeah.
knew with my, I knew 100%. It was just a matter of trying to put it all together. And then later on, finding out that it was possibly my uncle that warned me. And people might think that just sounds crazy. But this medium I spoke to, she didn't charge me money. She didn't know my name. She didn't know who I was. She
Right.
had no way of coming out with any of that information, like the frog thing. It just happened,
I was curious,
right?
how did your Uncle John die?
Um, you know what? I do believe it was a heart issue. He was found in his room, and it possibly could have been a heart attack. Um,
So that's
but
that's curious to find out just because of the
it
connection of
is.
what was going on with you,
You know
right? Not
what?
yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
know he was found in his house, and he was around that age that she
Mm,
had described. But it never dawned on me until she mentioned the frog thing. And I thought that is so out of left field. Because like if she asked anybody else that, it wouldn't probably have meant too much. But
Right.
to me, it knocked me out of my world. I knew that there was a connection. And
Yeah.
so there's people that can recognize and see. And I think some of these people return with a gift or they received a gift that they're able to do this. Um, and you have to be open to it. I think if you're not open to it, you won't believe it. You won't see these opportunities. Your mind is closed to them.
Yeah.
I believe you've got to have some belief that there is more, an open mind, which I do. I always have an open mind. Um, Things change quick in this world, as I found out. And I believe that that was a warning because this lady wouldn't have known that information about my uncle and frogs like that just out of the blue. It was just too incredible and too coincidental.
Right.
Everything just kind of fit together. And like I say, my intuition is sharp now, and I knew that that's probably exactly what happened. And this lady, I mean, I didn't know her. I didn't set up an appointment. It was just a brief bump run into online with this person. And that's what she came out with. And
Wow.
I was flabbergasted. And when I phoned my brother, I phoned him right away after. And I explained to him what happened and what this lady said. And as soon as I mentioned the word, what do frogs mean to you? It went to him too.
Yeah.
And he
So
knew
they,
right away.
so you both remember that your Uncle John had that connection with the frogs. And so
Yeah,
your intuition at that time, and again, that was before your NDE. So you were a busy guy, you were living your life, but you were on that, you were on your off work kind of thing, but stress was high. You weren't thinking
right,
intuitively, but there was intuition that hit you hard. And the other interesting thing is that I find fascinating is that you just jumped over, had this voidness that a lot of people experience. A lot of my NDEers experience this voidness, and then they go on to something more a lot of the
right,
times. But you were shocked back. I love the way you described because you're very descriptive in the way you brought everything, or you weren't shocked back, but you had that first shock, and that brought you out, and then you came
right,
back. But what I was gonna say was, it makes me really wonder. And again, you only experienced that first moment that, as you said, has completely gotten rid of your fear of death because you did feel a continued on existence beyond your physical, which
right.
is, I mean, that's a that's a gift in itself. But it seemed
It
like
is.
you were just on the door, right? And when you
Yeah,
hear about, I haven't had too many people on this show around ghosts and entities and all these kinds of things, right? Because they've been going on. I
right,
mean, they've been recorded for years, but people have. I don't even
right,
like to use the word hauntings, but you know, apparitions or ghosts and things. And it makes me wonder if those energies are in that state. They haven't decided to go to that next place, because if you were
right,
in that kind of dark void, who knows if you would have known how to come. You might have been able to shift back into this existence, even though you weren't here. And I'm getting really down the
right.
rabbit hole of this stuff, but if you don't cross, I feel like you're
Right.
still here. Like you're still
Yeah.
somehow here. And I feel like that's where you may have been. I'm going based off the conversations I've had with other people, and
Right.
I can't verify this because I've haven't had an NDE, don't want one. But
Right.
but it just sounds that way to me. It sounds like you were just on that doorstep.
Oh, I
And
certainly was.
yeah.
Yeah. There
And
was
you
no
didn't
doubt
hear any
about it.
energies or godly, and it was just you. It was just your energy.
Yeah. But I was getting information from somewhere, something.
Hmm.
I was receiving stuff into my mind. Like I knew not to be afraid. And it was weird because I'm like, where am I? This is kind of different. And all of a sudden, it's just like, bang, don't be afraid. Everything is calm and peaceful. And I never felt that good in my 50 years as I did during that um, period where I was in that blackness. It was just an incredible, peaceful, calm, no pain, no stress, no emotions, no human feelings in that, if you will. It was non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you take away all those things and the stresses and the senses that the human experiences, when you remove all those, it's a completely different world. It is a completely different dimension, but there's different frequencies that we can see and hear. And with our human senses, we're limited to those frequencies. What I think is there's other frequencies that are beyond what the human body can decipher.
Mm.
And it's outside of the limit. And you don't see it until it's the time to see it, kind of thing. That
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. Did you have, we don't need to go into great detail of this, but I'm always curious about this. Did you, because obviously when you were in this place and you were getting this download or this information that you would be okay, it it must have somehow, for to say it the way you did, it felt outside of you, but part of you is the way you're describing it. Because you
Yeah.
were getting the information. It wasn't your yourself saying it. It was everything's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
So there's something greater beyond, but at the same time, okay. And I'm curious if you had grown up around any influence around what God was, things like that, because I just always like to know if there was influence on your experience at all, or was this just a completely different vibe of what you thought you would have had at the end of your life type thing?
Completely different vibe. Um, I believe there's a creator. I believe, you know, our energies, everything, it all comes from somewhere in this universe. And it's a big, big place.
Right.
um, there's so much more to it that we need to understand. But like I say, if it's beyond the frequencies of what we can pick up or deal with, we don't see it until it's time. But there's certainly way more in this universe than our human senses can pick up or anything. It goes beyond words. But there's things that we're going to experience later when we shed our human senses, and things expand and they're different. But it was every bit of it was beautiful. Like there was nothing horrible about the experience for me,
Hmm.
nothing horrible at all. And I, I, I'm so thankful it removed those fears because I really did have a fear of death. Um, Same, it created pretty big anxiety at times, and this experience totally removed that from my mind, and
Wow.
I no longer have this anxiety or fear of it because I know that one day everything will be all right, and
Mm.
hopefully I'll be back to where I was, and it'll be just as beautiful as it was that day, um, because that you don't, as a person, you don't think you're going to run into a situation like this that's so life changing that it flips your life upside down and
Right.
changes all your beliefs and everything that you've led up to 50 years of believing. Because all of a sudden, it's not exactly what you thought, um,
Right.
or I thought. And that has a big impact, and so the people that are able to share that, I think, is a gift because there's people that need to hear that message. Um, our loved ones, when they're in this other state, they're fine. They're extremely relaxed. They're extremely happy. They're not in pain. They have no stresses. And
Hmm.
here we grieve, and grieving is proper and good. But, the person on the other side, they want to see us laughing, having fun, making the most of the time that we had left.
Hmm.
It's hard for them to get that message out. But really that's what it is instead of grieving, and we need to honor these people by being happy as they are, and being able to um, experience life and be happy because it's a short ride, it's temporary, and they want to see you succeed, they want to see you be happy, they don't want to see you stuck in a rut of grieving and over. So it's important that we honor those people by giving them and living happy for them, if that makes sense, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, that's a really important message. It's something that I love when I hear from the NDE community people that I speak with, just because the audience listening in, some of them are just intrigued by the NDE, but some of them have had horrific losses in their life that
Right.
are impacting their current life.
Yes.
And knowing that we're all going to be okay, and that in fact, with you, again, we just talked about it. You were just on the doorstep. We don't even know what we're capable of beyond this limited body, right? There could be so much more. Then you get into parallel lives, past lives, future lives, and then
Right.
dimensions, and who knows what. Like we only have the human brain to even say the things I'm saying right now. So
Right.
it's a matter of, you know, it would go to this. I wanted to ask you this. Did it feel as real there as here? You and I talking right now. Did it feel, when you think of realness, a
Yeah.
realness to me would be me, touching this paper, or did it feel
Correct.
real or did it feel dreamlike? I just always like to
Um,
differentiate the
to be
difference.
honest, a bit of both. I mean,
Okay.
it it kind of was like a dreamlike state, but um, very real, so real and clear that it was coming into my senses that no, I'm not freaking out. Just be calm because this is really what's happening. And my conscience didn't take a break. I was like, I'm still thinking, um, but I'm somewhere very different. And
Mm.
my mind is still working, but I knew I was not in this dimension at that time. I knew that.
Yeah, and some of the reason why we could think of it as dreamlike is because there's probably times in our lives where we have dreams where we might be visiting. I've always said, you know, how you have those dreams in your life where they're just dreams. You have random crazy dreams and you wake up, you're like, wow, I was a
I
horse and
had,
I was riding through. But then there's other ones where you go, whoa, and you can remember it your whole life,
yes,
certain dreams. And that's because
I've had a
sometimes
couple visitations
yeah,
in my
see,
dreams,
that's what I mean.
and
Yeah.
I think that that dimension is kind of connected to the dream state,
Hmm.
um, mind power, if you will. Um, I know I've received a couple visitations over the years. Two of them I know for sure. I'm absolutely certain of. And that was when I was sleeping and dreaming. But I'm absolute certain that those were events that were not just a dream without a message.
Right. No, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, I've always thought that there's some kind of connection, when we turn our power off and go to sleep here,
there
or
is. We
there
just
there
don't
could
know
be
what it is
this,
yet,
yeah,
but
we
there
don't,
is.
right. And that's the thing, like for us to think we have it all figured out in 2024, I think we're kind of kidding ourselves. There's a lot more that we're learning and there's a lot more happening, and um and again, the NDE experiences have become more prominent in our culture. We're starting to actually open up and listen to more. There's all kinds of different things that go on now, right? We talk about different entities and
Right,
ETs and all these things in a different light than they were even 30, 20 years ago. Let alone, so it's just
right.
things are shifting so quickly. Uh, one of the main things and final questions I try to ask everybody during any of these interviews, and this one is kind of difficult for some people to answer, but I think most people feel it right away. And I like to get the perspective of the NDE, or the person who's had these experiences. And it's that, what do you feel the main purpose is that we actually come and incarnate and do this human existence? Why do we come down here and do what you were doing before your NDE, and other people having their lives, having families, like what is our main goal and purpose?
Well, I think the main goal and purpose is to learn about everything that you can. It's strictly a learning thing. And people are like, there's a lot of bad stuff that happens, and it's true in the world. There's some horrible stuff that happens. But without the bad, you don't recognize the good. So um, the bad needs to happen so you can appreciate the good. Um, People are here for different reasons on different learning experiences, if you will. Um, and I believe it's so we can learn and love. And that's it. Simple as that. Learn and love. Those two words. Um, because at the end of the day, those are really the only two things that really matter. I mean, to me now,
Hmm.
before I could argue that fact and bring in many other things. But for now, I can say that life is about learning and loving. Those are the two things that it should be about. Um, and those are things to appreciate. Um, why there's some bad things that happen and stuff, I don't have the answer for that.
Hmm.
Um, it just seems sometimes there's some vile things that happen in this world, but there's also a lot of good people and people that can help with certain situations. And they need to be there to help these people that have gone through the other situations. I believe it's all connected. We're all connected to each other.
Hmm.
Um, and in it's hard to explain, but I mean, we are all connected to everything, not just each other, but everything.
Yeah.
And it, you don't realize it until later, but
Yeah.
um, there's a connection to everything, kind of universal, I think. And there's that's my best description. But I would say to learn and love and appreciate what's around. Uh, because there's times we get too busy with our jobs and things that we bypass and don't even see the beauty in a moment. But now I try to take time to recognize the beauty in all the moments,
Hmm.
and I try to help other people do that too now when I can, because some people need that, and that's why I think I survived, was so I could come back and help and make people aware of situations, because that's what I can do now. I can't work. I can't physically work. I'm I have to help other people, and this is the only way I can do it. Is exactly this way.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
No, I love that. It's an amazing message. And in saying that too, is there anywhere where people can find you? Is there like some people have websites, some people have YouTube channels, some people have different
Yeah,
things.
I don't. I really don't. I use social media very frequently. Um, just under like Facebook, but I don't have my real name on there. Like I said, I got a small circle. I don't want to be a limelight kind of guy. I'm not looking for notoriety or anything. But if people want to needed help or needed to talk, I would certainly be open to do that and leave you with the information where they could get a hold of me. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I can always put that in the end notes too, in case someone is wanting to contact you, even just about your story, just about
Yeah.
the experience that you've had, right? Because that's probably how I connected with you, like we said earlier. So
Yeah.
it's just
Right.
it's an amazing conversation. And what I love is that, it's so authentically real. And you've even shared the fact that you even had your own anxieties around the idea of death, and now that fear of death, you said it a couple times during this episode, is that it's gone. It's
Yeah.
not like you're just ready to run and go. Like you're enjoying your life now, and you're very lucky to be back. And then sometimes when people say, 15% chance that should even be here, it's like I feel like I'm talking to someone who's been gone and come back. Like it's kind of like, wow, I'm blessed to be able to do that. So it's an amazing experience, an amazing storyline.
Yeah. I didn't know just how fortunate I was until when I was in intensive care. I went to the Heart and Research Association
Mhm.
um, website on my phone. And that's when I realized just how fortunate I really was, because not many people come back from a widowmaker.
Yeah.
I was extremely fortunate, and, and I want to make good use of the time that I was granted that's extra.
Well, you definitely are, even by coming on the show today. I want to thank you so much. I think this probably will be a Christmas special I'll put out. So Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everybody out there.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you as well. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure to join you today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dale. I always turn to the audience and say, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. You are the reason we do this. And if this story or Dale's story speaks to you, or you know someone it could speak to, please share it with them. It means a lot to us. So thank you so much. And we will see you next time on The Soul Inspired.
So